No, I mean, I think that the Republicans are on the other side of the fence right now, as they were in 2019, partially because the House was controlled by the Democrats. Now it's a trifecta. The Republicans own it completely, the House, the Senate, and the White House. And that has a little bit of a different bearing, I think, maybe not for President Trump, but certainly for the members of the Congress. And we've been seeing some of these special elections, they were expected to go Democratic way, but we're seeing some other special elections, even for state legislatures, that are going the Democrats' way, or in districts that Trump won. So I think the political stakes are quite high for this shutdown. Remember, the Republicans pretty much shut the government down with President Obama in 2013, and they won the Senate back in 2014. But since then, I think they've seen political costs associated with shutdowns, even with Biden, and tried to avoid them. Now it seems that the president seems to be itching for a fight. And it could be extremely costly, I think, even in Virginia and in New Jersey going forward with those elections coming right up. The Democrats and they have to be super clear, Tom. Why are they shutting the government down? So far, it's a bit of a murky message. And unless they get that message right, I don't think it'll help them.
So at this stage, Wendy, A, do you think there will be a shutdown? And B, who gets the blame here?
Well, when you run the government, you typically you try to avoid it, but you can, as we saw in 2014, you can get the blame. You're supposed to be in charge. Why can't you get it through? Why can't your party get things through and overcome opposition and obstruction? And we know that the Republican Party is fragile in the House. You're supposed to be capable, and how come you're not capable? And the president's threatening to fire thousands of federal employees, not just furlough them, which means they don't get paid, but when the government opens up, they get their money back, fire them entirely. And that's going to have a very different repercussion. So I think the stakes seem to me a little bit higher, given DOGE in the beginning of this year and some of the ways the administration has been trying to make up for those cuts now and how the government functions. I do think the stakes are higher. But as I said, if the Democrats cannot get the messaging correct, then I don't think they win any political points in shutting the government down.
Macron was sitting there trying to cross Fifth Avenue.
Yep.
He's on the phone with Trump going, why can't I cross?
Exactly.
It reminded me of when Professor Schiller was at the head of the Charles Regatta with Brown.
Yep.
And she was trying to cross Memorial Drive, and she's on the phone with Harvard saying, why can't I cross Memorial Drive? Wendy, what does a foreign contingent in New York think about the song and dance of American politics? All these elite, Paul and I, we can't go anywhere. We're bouncing into diplomats here, there, and everything. What do all these assembled people actually think about American foreign policy?
Well, I think that a lot of these leaders are still somewhat stunned that America reelected Donald Trump from their perspective. I think that they come from parliamentary systems, as you well know, Tom. And in parliamentary systems, many of those leaders have what we would call absolute power, right? They have a party that elects them from the legislative branch, and all their ministers run things. And the programs the president proposes, have to go through Congress and be compromised with, not in parliamentary systems. The government owns the policymaking outright.
Right.
So I don't think they're at all surprised that the executive branch has become so powerful in American politics. I think they're surprised institutionally we're set up so differently. How did the president amass so much power over his own party when they're not electorally connected the way all across Europe?
Bottle that.
Yep.
That, what she just said there, folks, is the heart of the matter, is the confusion over parliamentary versus the Madisonian system of America. That was brilliant.
Professor, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is going to meet with President Trump today. I guess it calls into question the relationship of the U.S. vis-a-vis India and Pakistan. How do you think this will play out?
Well, I think under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents for a long time, the United States has tried to manage the Pakistan-India conflict, the situation. Nuclear powers are tough to manage. But the United States has never really leaned one way or the other in that relationship. If things seem a little rocky with India in terms of our visa policy, immigration policy, tariff policy. So I think the United States has always balanced these two nations. And I think that's exactly what the Trump administration will try to continue to do.
Brilliant question, Paul. Okay, I just did Gemini. I mean, if I was at Brown with Professor Schiller, I'd be working AI all the time to get quality C. Is there a Pakistan-India war AI tells me, Professor Schiller, no, there's not an ongoing war between Pakistan and India. How can the president claim he's solving this war, that war?
Well, I think he's frustrated that he isn't solving the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I think he's frustrated that he hasn't made more progress in terms of a ceasefire in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. And I think he's
Right.
turning his attention to other areas where he might have. Now, war, this is the thing about nuclear weapons and the spread of nuclear weapons. This is so much why Iran wants a nuclear weapon. Because when you have one, your neighbors are less likely to attack you in any real wholesale sense. And I think that's where India-Pakistan
Right.
stands quite different from the other conflicts that we're seeing.